Good afternoon. Thank you for that warm welcoming. My name is McClish, and I'm glad to be here today at CrimeCon, and hopefully by the end of my presentation, you too will be glad that I was here. And I say that because I got some very interesting information to share with you. As you heard, I'm a retired supervisory deputy United States Marshal, spent 24 years with the Marshal Service, 9 of those years teaching interviewing techniques at our training academy. And during that time, I developed the statement analysis techniques to detect deception in a verbal and written statement. And what you'll find is that statement analysis is the most accurate way of determining if a person is lying or telling the truth. And that's because people's words will betray them. Even though people may want to lie, they will give us more information than what they realize. Unfortunately, they sometimes give us more information than what we realize. And it all gets down to listening. So today, I'm going to give you some things to listen for to help you to determine as you're watching a crime show who's being truthful and who's being deceptive. Now, notice I didn't say I'm giving you some techniques that you can use on your spouse or fiance. Kids, maybe, but save it for when you're watching a true crime show. Now, I've got a riddle for you. There were 2 frogs sitting on a log. One decided to jump off. How many frogs were left sitting on the log? There's only a couple possible answers here, but the correct answer is 2, because the frog only decided to jump off. Now, some of you may have visualized 2 frogs sitting there, one taking the plunge, but that's not what was said. We do not interpret. That's because people mean exactly what they say. Every once in a while, I'll analyze a statement, and somebody might say to me, well, that's your interpretation. I say, no, it's not. All I'm doing, all you're going to be doing is pointing out what the person has said, or in some cases, not said. So we don't interpret. And a good way to avoid interpretation is to take the approach, I'm going to believe what this person is telling me. Now, you might be thinking, well, Mark, if somebody's lying to me, I'm supposed to believe the lies? Well, no, but what you're going to find is that most of the time, people aren't lying. We think they're lying, but if you listen closely, you'll realize, well, they're not lying. They've qualified their statement. Or they gave an answer, but they didn't answer that specific question. So if you take this approach, I'm going to believe what this person's telling me, a lot more things will jump out of that statement. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton was running for president, she was interviewed by Scott Pelley with the CBS News. And Pelley said to her, in 76, Jimmy Carter famously said, I will not lie to you. Well, Mrs. Clinton responded by saying, well, I have to tell you, I've tried and never I know how, literally from my years as a lawyer all the way through my time as Secretary of State to love the American people. But look at her language. The key word she uses is the word tried. Ask yourself, what's the word tried mean? Well, it means attempted, failed. Didn't do it. I've tried to love the American people, but I haven't. That's exactly what she's saying. That's not interpretation. That's what the word tried means. Now, we all know what the word tried means, but it gets used a lot, and it goes in one ear and out the other. He went on to say, you talk about love the American people. Have you always told the truth? I've always tried to, always, always. I'll give her an A for effort, but recognize what the word tried means. Now, when he was on a campaign trail, Donald Trump made the promise that he would never lie. So a reporter interviewing him asked him about that, and he asked him, have you kept that promise?
Finally, you remember well in the campaign, you made a promise. You said, I will never lie to you. So can you tell me now, honestly, have you kept to that promise at all times? Have you always been truthful?
Well, I try. I mean, I do try. I think you try too.
Everybody's trying. But recognize the word try means you didn't do it. Listen to what people are telling you. In 2010, Charlie Crist was running for U.S. Senate as a Republican senator. Running against him was Marco Rubio. And the polls showed that Rubio was probably going to win the August primary and become the Republican nominee in the November election. Chris Wallace interviewed Charlie Crist, and he asked him, will you support the winner of the GOP primary, whereas you or Marco Rubio? Of course I will. Of course I will. Well, again, look at Chris' language. He didn't say, yes, I will. That's the best answer. He just said, of course I will. He just wants us to assume that he will support Marco Rubio because he's a fellow Republican. Well, Rubio went on to win the August primary, became the Republican nominee, and instead of supporting Marco Rubio, Chris switched parties, became an independent, and ran against Marco Rubio. And Rubio easily defeated him, is currently one of Florida's senators. So his language indicates he probably won't support him. His actions eventually bear that out as well. Stephen Avery killed Teresa Halbach. In 2015, Netflix released her documentary, Making a Murderer. Teresa Halbach is a freelance photographer in Wisconsin working for Auto Trader. Last seen talking to Stephen Avery at the Avery's Auto Salvage Yard. She was there to take a picture of a minivan they're going to sell through Auto Trader. She had been there several other times taking pictures of cars they sold over the years. Well, when the police searched the Avery's Auto Salvage Yard, they found her car hidden amongst the other cars. They searched Avery's trailer, located on the same premises, and found her car keys in his bedroom. They looked in a burn barrel next to his trailer, found her cell phone and a few other items that belonged to her, looked in a burn pit behind her trailer and found parts of her bones. That's where he disposed of her body. And Stephen Avery was convicted of killing Teresa Habach. But some people felt that he was framed, and the documentary leans in that direction. And that's because in 1985, Avery was wrongfully convicted of a sexual assault case. He spent 18 years in prison before DNA exonerated him. He got a bad rap. So at the time that Habach disappeared, he was suing the county. And so that's why some people felt the police were framing him. Well, a couple days after Habach disappeared, a reporter interviewed Stephen Avery. And a reporter asked Avery, did she, Habach, mention any other appointments that day or anything like that? And Avery answered, I don't think so, because most of the time she takes a picture, then she writes down a show number, then she comes to collect some money, and that's about it. And that's a truthful statement. But look at his language. The key words he uses are, I don't think so, because most of the time. See, he told this reporter what she did all the other times she was there, and that's a truthful statement, but he couldn't tell her what she did the last time she was there. He couldn't say she took a picture, wrote down the serial number, collected the money, and left. Because no doubt in my mind, she didn't leave those premises. Now, Brandon Dassey, Avery's nephew. Some people felt that he gave her a false confession, and you may have heard about that in this morning's session. Well, again, I believe what Brandon Dassey said. Even though he has a low IQ, I believe him when he told his mother that Stephen did it. I believe him when he told his mother that he did, quote, some of it. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of his statements later on. I was watching a television commercial for astrology. Call their number, they'll tell you what kind of day you're going to have. And they conclude their infomercial by saying, see how accurate reading the stars can be. Look exactly what they're telling you. See how accurate reading the stars can be. Not will be, but can be. I'm sure they get lucky in their predictions every once in a while. So when we analyze a statement, the first thing we do is we look at the language. Look at how the person phrased their statement. Ask yourself, what's this person telling me based on how he phrased his statement?